the types of cleanliness, what really we are talking about when we say cleanliness, right? So there are different kinds of cleanliness when it comes to worship or in general. So there is something which we call spiritual cleanliness, and which is inside us. All of us have ruh, that's called the soul. We are supposed to clean that as well for worshiping. And there's something called physical cleanliness, which is our body, our clothes and environments. For example, can we pray in bathroom? Right? That's a question. So that's concerning environment. What are the do's and don'ts regarding that? What is considered pure and what's not? If I have a pigeon defecates from the top and it falls on my clothes, can I still pray in that clothes? Is it okay? So what is clean and what is not clean? And the general body itself. Now, third part is cleanliness for eating. We had this halaqah fiqh of food and clothing. Just covered fiqh of food in that one, and we talked a lot about which food is halal, which one is not, what should we should be careful about. But there are a lot of things more than that, just the food itself. But there are things like what happens if a dog licks me, or what happens if dog licks my cooking utensil, how do I wash it? So things like that. It's not related to worship, but we have strict rules when it comes to consuming food as well. So we need to be aware of those. So I have spiritual cleanliness and physical cleanliness, right? Now, it's very important that when we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we need to have both state of purity, the purity of the soul and purity of the body as well. Okay? And if our soul is not pure for worship, we cannot worship at all. So for example, if a person takes a shower, he makes wudu, everything, he's very clean, uses soap, shampoo and everything that you can imagine, he comes out of the bathroom, all right? And then one of the thing happens that breaks his wudu, like for example, wind passes by, so he breaks his wudu. And another person, his brother, maybe comes inside the house and he's probably playing the basketball whole day. He's all muddy, sweaty, and he probably has wudu. But, for example, another case, another brother of his also enters, he works in a place, for example, an auto shop, for example, where he has to deal with a lot of oil and grease and so on. And his hands are very dirty, but he has wudu. If you ask a person outside, who is more clean? The brother who took the shower but he passed the wind, and this brother who is like all dirty and sweaty with the sports that he played, but he has wudu, he did wudu. Maybe he has wudu for the last 2-3 hours, he didn't break it. Who is more cleaner? If you look, physically, people might say, okay, this guy took shower, he must be more cleaner. So, but the problem is, we're talking about spiritual cleanliness as well, okay? Yes, maybe body-wise he is clean. When he goes to bathroom, he cleans himself, he gets clean. So that's body cleanliness. But when you pass wind, your internal soul gets unclean. Okay, that's why there is a connection between our body, our soul, and the things that we perform, wudu and ghusl. That's why, if you remember, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said one of his advice was that if a person gets angry, what should he do? He should make wudu. Why? Because wudu, actually there is a connection. When you make wudu, it goes inside and it purifies your soul. That's the whole point of this. You cannot, unfortunately, take your soul out, clean it with a soap and then keep it back. We don't have that mechanism, right? It's not designed that way. But in order to clean the soul, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said that you should do wudu. You should perform ghusl if you are in major impurity, and that way it will get clean. So just because you took a shower and all you're smelling so nice doesn't mean you are good to worship, because you have to check your soul too, and that's why it is very important you differentiate it. But somebody goes to bathroom, he has to clean also, because there will be some uncleanliness in his parts, private parts. So that has to be this one, physical cleanliness for worship, that will be body. And we're going to cover how to clean and all those things. First, let's take the first part, the spiritual cleanliness or the cleanliness of the soul. So there are a few things which needs to happen before you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You need to understand the three different states that our soul goes into, okay? And our body goes into. The first state is the major impurity, second one minor impurity, and the third one the state of purity. This everybody should know this. Now, there are many ways you can reach from one state to another, but important thing here is that the state of purity that you have here, you can only worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Certain actions of worship can only be done if you are in this state. So salah is one such example. You cannot offer salah when you are in this state of impurity, any of these, major or minor impurity. There are two other worship that we do which requires state of purity. If you don't have the state of purity, you cannot worship. What are those two other things? Think about it. You need to be in the state of purity if you want to do tawaf. What's the other one? A majority of the scholars said that you have to, in order to read Quran from a mushaf, you need to have. So let's talk about this minor impurity now and major impurity. And also I drew the diagram, like if you are in major impurity, how do you get to state of purity? You do ghusl, right? And also if you are in minor impurity, you do wudu and you reach into state of purity. Now I hope all of you are aware of tayammum also, right? We do in certain situations. We're going to talk about detail in tayammum, but which place would it go, tayammum, the right side or the left side?
The right side.
Both. It goes both. Okay, so if you don't have water and if you need to do ghusl or wudu, you need to do tayammum. So how do you reach from state of purity to minor impurity? An example? You go to bathroom or you pass gas or wind from backside on. There are 9-10 ways which can happen. We're also going to cover that. And also state of purity to major impurity, we're also going to talk about that. It's an intimacy, the end of intimacy, and also if a woman gives birth to a child, she also becomes major impurity state, and she has to wait for a certain period and then she becomes pure, state of purity. So how that happens, there are also 5-6 ways that can happen. We're going to talk about that as well, inshallah.